Welcome to the Newsa-Cast YouTube channel. These Red Smith Banquet throwbacks are exclusive interviews of sports legends, powerful media personalities, and influential coaches. You won't find these anywhere else. Subscribe below and enjoy. It's that time again. Once again, it's time for a Red Smith Banquet throwback. And for this episode, we go back to the year of COVID when we put on a virtual banquet. Our own Jeremy Davis sat down with legendary basketball coach Bo Ryan. And what makes this interview so special is Jeremy is a UW-Madison graduate, but he was also Bo Ryan's manager. So Jeremy sat on the bench with Bo Ryan through an NCAA tournament, Final Four appearance, that whole thing. So it makes for a really, really interesting and intimate conversation with the legendary Bo Ryan.
Now we welcome in the career wins leader in Wisconsin basketball history, a college basketball Hall of Famer. He led the Badgers to the 2014 and 2015 Final Fours. More importantly to me, he was my boss in college while I served as a student manager for his teams. And now he's the 2021 Red Smith Award winner. He is Coach Bo Ryan. Coach, thanks for joining us.
It's nice to visit with you and to see the things that you're doing now, and that you're out there trying to help people. You're out there trying to help the youth of Appleton and doing this thing with me. And I'm really happy because it's nice to know that former players and managers give back.
Anytime that anybody learns that I was a manager for you when I was in college, the first question they want to ask is what's Coach Ryan up to now? What are you doing now? Can you catch us up?
Well, this year I am in 5 different golf leagues out here in PGA West in La Quinta, California. It started out, I was in 2 leagues, then it was 3, then it was 4, and now it is 5 this year. So Monday through Friday, I'm on the golf course. But otherwise, before this year and before the spring of last year, we had family out here. We had visitors. I had friends that would come out and spend time with us. We've had absolutely none of that this year. So fortunately, Kelly and I get along real well. We spend a lot of time together and enjoy it. So that's what we're doing 6 months out of the year. And I'm sure people out there know which 6 months that would be. And then 6 months in Madison. We're in a condo in Weston Place. And there, it's mostly Nakoma Country Club where I play golf, and also family, former players, and managers and people that visit in Madison. So hopefully this year when we get back there in Madison, it'll be more wide open and we'll be able to go grab something to eat and drink and swap stories with all the former players and managers.
Well, with golf being such a big part of your life now, Andy North is a pretty good resource for you. He's been a guest of the Red Smith Sports Awards before. What's it like having him being able to be your swing coach of sorts?
Well, I haven't seen him in so long because of COVID, but he's always had really good tips for me. And it seems when I play a few holes with him, he has me rid of my slice. And then, of course, when I tell him a week later that once I got out there and played, it came back, he asked me one question. He said, well, did you practice? I said, practice? I don't practice golf. I play golf. Come on, Andy. So he said, well, you'll never get rid of that fade. So our slice, now I call it a fade.
Okay.
But Andy's been to more practices than I think my assistant coaches over the years.
Absolutely. He's a huge Badger supporter. I loved hearing.
Wanted him out of the house. Just so you know.
Okay. Well,
get out of the house. Go to practice.
He picked a good way to spend his time. It was awesome. I mean, I was just a college kid, and the 2-time U.S. Open champion is just hanging out at practice all the time. He was an awesome guy to have around. Outside of golf, when we were talking about scheduling today's interview, I loved hearing that really the one thing we were working around was making sure that you could watch the Badgers later today. You still watch every single possession?
I do. And watching games, to me, is one of the hardest things to do when it's your former assistant or a family member. or both. In this case, with Will, at being at Green Bay, I last about 30 seconds, watch 3 turnovers, and Kelly throws me out of the room because of my comments. I'd like to see him at least cut that down to 2 turnovers in the first 3 minutes. But no, he's watching Greg and with the Badgers and watching Will with Green Bay. It's interesting. For me, JD, it is very, very difficult to watch somebody that I've been very close to over the years, family and former assistants and former players. But as I get older, Kelly's hoping that I'll mellow a little bit. So I'm still waiting.
She's still waiting, though, yeah. How often do you check in with Coach Gard?
Oh, we talk maybe once a week. We try to stay connected as possible, but I do not bother him during the season or call. And if he knows where to find me, if he's looking for, a tip or like, remember when we did this or remember when we did that? What made us do that? Every once in a while, but he's been at it long enough now where he's gonna go way past the rest of us relics that coached at Wisconsin. He'll break all those records, and he'll do it in a way where he'll be teaching a lot of good things to his student athletes.
Of course, Coach Gard was your long-time assistant. Now, you mentioned a couple of your former players as well. First off, Orlando Tucker, one of the best players that ever played for you. Did you see coaching in his future when he was a player?
Well, I actually see coaching in every one of the guys who completes 4 or 5 years with us because, first of all, they were patient enough to be good students of the game.
I thought you were going to say to put up with you.
And in the classroom. Well, sometimes that might be a factor, but hopefully in a good way. Because, as a coach, it's not my job to be their friend. It's my job to get them to understand what we need to do to play together as a team and show them ways that they can get better. So that's our function. But with Orlando and also with Joe Krabbenhoff, which I'm sure you're going to ask me about, having those 2 guys on the staff, wow. It's like taking a trip down memory lane when I'm watching the games, and every once in a while they show those guys. It's really nice to watch the development of his assistants. They're getting ready. They're getting ready for what's next, just like he was when he was an assistant.
Well, you're way ahead of me, as always. That's exactly where I was going. Joe Krabbenhoff was one of my favorite guys that I got to meet during my time with Wisconsin basketball. Where do you see his coaching potential? Do you see him as a head coach down the line somewhere big?
Well, yeah, there's no question about that. But let me tell you this. What people fail to realize is all the thousands of dollars that were saved at the University of Wisconsin when Joe Krabbenhoff's eligibility was up. We no longer had to get sutures. Our trainer, Henry, did not have to spend as much time mending one guy and all the gauze and everything else. Joe, I want to thank you for saving the athletic department so much money. No one dove for more loose balls. No one, maybe Josh Gossard. Maybe Michael Flowers. I mean, those guys were really hard nosed, and I'll stop there because I'm sure I'll get a call like, hey, coach, you didn't mention me. But as far as cuts and bruises, no one will ever surpass Joe's numbers. And, he's good. He shows tough love just like Orlando Tucker does. So watching them, and I've been to a few practices before, of course, this past year. And watching those guys work, it just had me smiling the whole time I was there and driving on the way back home. It's people that never get a chance to experience that. I wish they could, but the joy of watching people do what they like as a profession, providing for a family, raising families of their own. Getting old is nice, JD. There's a lot of things that you can observe that really put a smile on your face.
Well, we've talked about some guys that you've coached with, some guys that you coached as players. One of the most interesting guys that I ever met was the guy who coached you, Coach Rainey. He was both your high school and college coach, one of the most unique characters I've ever been around. Can you talk about what led to you playing for him at both levels, and then what your relationship is with him now?
Yeah, and I'm glad you said played for him in high school and college, because when we tell people or somebody brings it up that I played for him for 7 years, everyone thinks that my grades were in high school. So it was 3 years in high school, 4 years in college. I went to the college to Wilkes University because of Coach Rainey. I was going to either Temple or Rutgers at the time, and it just seemed natural to continue to play for him. He had that kind of influence. Other than my dad, no one else has ever had anywhere near the influence that Coach Rainey has. He's a much more of a character, much easier to get along with when he's not your coach. And he was my assistant coach at Platteville, and did a great job of staying out of my way, as I always say.
But he stayed around for.
But his insight and his and the players loved him. I was the good guy, or the bad guy, excuse me. He was the good guy, and he could always calm guys down and do that for us. So. And it was really neat going to the Final Fours and having him right at my side the whole time for the whole experience. He was like a kid in a candy store. But yes, he had a very big influence. He was the guidance counselor of my high school besides being the head coach. I was president of the class, so I spent all my non-classroom hours at his office.
What was it like going from being the biggest fish in a small pond there at Platteville, where you had won and dominated so much, to then breaking through to the Division I level, where you're a smaller fish in a bigger pond?
Well, I never really worried about the media part, and those that have been around me understand that. It's Division III was still coaching. I didn't change any of my coaching techniques when I got to Division I, and the Division III National Championship in men's basketball, there are more teams that compete for that crown than any other sport that the NCAA has to offer. There
Really?
are more Division III schools than any other sport or any other division. So that was fun. That's like, wow. I was so proud of our players that they were able to handle once we won our first one, then, of course, like you said, the pressure steps up, the eyes are on you a little bit. But I wasn't in a hurry to leave. I wasn't. There was a couple opportunities where I could have left the state, but having already been an assistant for 8 years at Wisconsin, and then the 15 years at Platteville, it was kind of, okay, it's got to be something special. So when another Division I job in the state opened up, and that was at UWM, and they took a chance on me. Not very many administrations hire Division III coaches. And so to Bud Haiti, the AD, I thank him every day I wake up that, okay, he gave me a shot. And then, of course, when Pat Richter made the call to come back, when I say to come back to Wisconsin, having left there where we didn't do very well, worked hard, had some great players, guys that worked hard, but winning's tough. You find out that the other guys are trying to do the same thing. And to get a chance to go back and as a head coach and to kind of do your thing, that was such a great feeling. And I got a chance to stay in the state for 40 years, which has been beneficial, to put it mildly.
That 2014 and 2015 stretch was obviously awesome. You coached a number of great teams, but what was it about those two groups that made them special, that let them get to that next level?
The way they bonded, it was more about what they learned to do together, maybe not so much from external sources like coaches. there's a lot of stuff that gets delivered to players during the course of the year and in the practice, in the preseason. And okay, what are you willing to take in? What are you willing as a player to give up? You got to be unselfish to a certain extent. A lot of coaches say, "Oh, I wish he was more selfish. I wish he would do this," but you have to find that level. You find that level in practice. So the thing that I liked about those groups, and like I liked about all our teams, is the guys listened. And, they knew that every possession is charted. There's never a trip up and down the floor where there isn't some kind of score, points per possession. I was using points per possession back in the early 70s. What made those groups special was there was enough talent there that if it's harnessed, and there's a few guys that needed a little direction at times, and once they understood that they have teammates, you don't have to do it all by yourself. You got teammates. Here we go, and I think that's what those two groups had a chance to show. And honestly, there's a lot of other teams that I was fortunate to coach that could have been to the Final Four, and there's coaches that'll tell you about their teams that they had that didn't make it to the Final Four. Matchups, the flu, injuries, things that happen towards the end of the year that are unfortunate. The fact that we got there was hard work, dedication, unselfishness, and guys coming together and giving up a little of themselves to make the whole better. And those two teams, those 2 years, they did a tremendous job of that.
What was it about the Kohl Center playing at home that was so special that helped you be so dominant there?
So I think our consistency really helped make the Kohl Center what it was for the fans, and the fans in return gave us their energy, and we certainly used it.
Coach, even though you've retired now, I know you're still very involved with Coaches versus Cancer. Can you talk a little bit about what that cause means to you and how you're still involved with that?
I appreciate you bringing that up. The person who got me into college coaching that gave me my first job was Bill Cofield. Bill Cofield was the first African-American head coach of any major sport in the Big Ten in 1976, and very few people know about it. But I thanked him recently with the virtual thing that I did for the Wisconsin Hall of Fame, and people said, "Well, who's that?" I said, "Well, he was a coach. He coached at Lincoln University, coached at Prairie View, and then coached at Dominican College, where Kelly and I met, and then was an assistant at Virginia with Terry Holland, and then got the Wisconsin job." The reason I'm bringing him up with your question of Coaches versus Cancer, we were let go in 1982. And I say we, the staff, and within a year, Coach Cofield died of pancreatic cancer. I had an assistant coach at Platteville, Denny Morgan, same thing, intestinal cancer. My roommate from college, best friend, pancreatic cancer. So when we got together and started the Coaches versus Cancer in Madison, we had no idea where it was going to go. We raised about $60,000 the first year, and the last year the highest was $1.5 million. So we've raised about $8 million for cancer research, a lot of it staying right at the Carbone Center in Madison, and some of it going to the best programs out there, the best research centers in certain areas, because the American Cancer Society channels money to the best of the best, and also locally. So the way that people in Wisconsin responded to our Coaches versus Cancer, there's no other school, there's no other place in the country that raises what we do in Madison. And it's already shown its positive effects. There's better detection, there's better treatment, there's more and more things happening. Cancer hasn't gone away. And so Coaches versus Cancer isn't going to go away. We're still going to, as coaches, take that up as our charity of choice. And it's obviously near and dear to my heart, and hopefully we can eradicate this thing and get it out, get that, and get COVID over with. And boy, I certainly hope for my grandchildren there's a future out there that's a lot better health-wise than what we're going through right now. And the only way to do it is to try to be part of the solution, not the problem. So by raising funds, that's how we're trying to be a part of the solution.
Well, it's certainly an incredible job that you've done thus far helping with that cause. We certainly appreciate you helping with our charity here today as well. Thank you for my time that I had with you in college. Thank you for your time here today, and congratulations on being the 2021 Red Smith Award winner.
I certainly am humbled to be sitting here knowing that that people up there actually would bestow that to a guy like myself who grew up with a dad who did more for youth sports in the Philly area than any person I've ever met. And that's not because he was my dad. He started 2 youth organizations. One has his name to it on the football field, and with very limited funds. And there's a lot of players that he coached that I know are very thankful for what he did for youth sports. So what you're doing up there, this Red Smith Award and this get-together that you're going to have, even though it's virtual this year, keep up the good work, because there's a lot of kids who maybe never will say thank you, but deep in their hearts, they know that they've been helped by people who care about their development when they're young.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, Coach. Thanks again for your time, and go Badgers.
Forever.
Please subscribe to this channel, give this video a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we post another great episode or interview. Download the podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for your support.